Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name's Matt, and this is our film club review for The Mandalorian and Grogu. The Mandalorian and Grogu is the first Star Wars film that's been theatrically released in about 7 years, I think. You know, we've had lots of Disney Plus series, and we've had lots of series that kind of take the events of previous theatrical releases and sort of move the story and move the characters forward in those series. But this is the first one that's kind of gone the other way and started off with the series and moved into a theatrical release. So today I'm going to be reviewing The Mandalorian and Grogu, saying what I liked and what I didn't like about it, and then sort of ranking it in terms of how many stars I'd give it. So The Mandalorian and Grogu was directed by Jon Favreau, who I'm sure lots of people will know the name of. In terms of his directing projects, he directed the live action Lion King. I think he did Iron Man 1 and 2 as well. He's appeared in loads of stuff as a producer. He's been in Tom Holland's Spider-Man films as an actor. So Jon Favreau is a person that especially Marvel and Star Wars people know really well. And he was supported on this by Dave Filoni. Dave Filoni is kind of credited as one of the writers on this. As Star Wars fans in particular will know Dave Filoni, you know, he's kind of the new head honcho at Lucasfilm, especially since Kathleen Kennedy stepped away. Dave's kind of taken on that mantra, and he's kind of the person running Star Wars forward now. In terms of cast, so Pedro Pascal is back playing Mando, obviously only in it for a slight amount of time, given that the fact that part of the Mandalorian lore is that you're supposed to keep your helmet on at all times. So how much he actually was in the costume for those periods of time during the film where he's got his helmet on, I'm not too sure, but still he's credited with it anyway. So let's get into it then. So there was a lot to like about this film, particularly the way that it looks. You know, it had a real old school Star Wars feel to it. If you've watched any of the videos on Adam Savage's channel where he kind of got to do a bit of a tour to some of the locations and the prop houses that they've got on the series and now the film, you'll have seen that there are a lot of practical effects in this. You know, there's lots of puppetry, there's lots of physical sets. And I think one of the benefits of them doing a film and a theatrical release of this as opposed to making the next series of the TV show is the fact that they've had a bit more time. And because of that, they can shoot things slightly differently. So a lot of it is practical, with then the LED volumetric screen almost being used as a background to kind of extend those environments a little bit further, rather than everything being shoot on the volume and a couple of props being kind of put in to sort of set dress it and kind of hide the illusion of it a little bit. So there's one scene in particular where they kind of go into what feels very sort of Tokyo inspired. It's sort of an alleyway. There's lots of neon signs. It looks spectacular. And especially with Mando's armor being metal and sort of reflecting all of that light from different angles, it felt very real, and it felt a sort of, I guess, a texture that we've not really seen in films, certainly up until, you know, the last couple of years. So that was really cool. There were some really nice moments in it, especially lots of those kind of little laughs that you get from the puppetry. The little ship repair characters, they were really cool, and you know, the little distinguishable little bits of audio that they had was really fun and really enjoyable as well. But there were downsides to this film, and it pains me to say this, because I really wanted to love this film. I really wanted this to be sort of flag in the ground, Star Wars is back kind of thing. I guess the first gripe I've got with this is the music. The music took me out of this film so much. If you think back to previous Star Wars films and that iconic John Williams score, and how certain characters have got little motifs in the music and they come back and evolve, and the orchestra sort of score to that is there to heighten the emotion. This felt like, and I'm really sorry if this is harsh to whoever it was that was doing the audio, But this felt like somebody just went on a stock library and pulled out four synth tracks and stuck them on. They didn't add character. They didn't add emotion. It was just there. It felt so stuck on. It felt so basic. And it really pains me to say that. I really don't want to sit here and say that. I don't want to sit here and, moan about things that I didn't like, but as a producer and director, it took me out of the film massively. Massively. My second big gripe with this was it didn't have the structure of a film. It very much had the structure of 4 episodes of TV that have been shoved together to make a film. If you think about film being a sort of, and the traditional way of making a film and having a sort of 3-act structure where you have an event at the start which causes disequilibrium, and then the character's journey is all about getting to that new end point where they learn something, they evolve as a character, and they end up as a different person or elevated in some way compared to where they were when they started the film. This just did not have any of that. Mando starts as a bounty hunter. He does a mission, it goes slightly wrong, and he finishes up as a bounty hunter. The same for Grogu. Grogu starts as sort of Mando's cute little sidekick, and I guess you could make a claim that he kind of orchestrates a bit of a rescue mission. And spoilers ahead, by the way, if you've not watched the film, I am about to say something that could spoil it for you. So fair game, you've been warned. The bit where Mando is poisoned and he's lying in the forest and Grogu's just chilling. Grogu is meditating. He's building a little hut. He goes and has a nice seafood dinner. Why is that portion of the film not used to elevate Grogu's character? Why is that not... he needs to communicate. He needs help. So therefore he has to grow as a character. He has to do something different. Maybe that was the point where, he says his first sentence in that sort of iconic Yoda layout, help I need, something like that. Something that develops him as a character. But instead he goes up to a hut, nicks a fish, chats to a guy, gets a bit of paste, and all of a sudden Mando's back to full health and everything's hunky-dory. And the force healing as well. A penny for Qui-Gon Jinn's thoughts. He must be the only Jedi in the galaxy at this point who didn't have the force healing ability. The force healing was a choice. It wouldn't have been what I'd have done. I think, like I said, I think you can scrap that whole bit of Grogu having his sort of Dagobah moment and do something that grew the character and elevated that character. To me, that would have been far more interesting than what we got, and adds to that sort of end of the disequilibrium and build into that new equilibrium where you are getting the characters into that final stage where they're different kind of coming into it. As I said, the structure of this film didn't work. It was very much, everything that I enjoyed was very much at a surface level, popcorn, chewing gum sort of level. It was pretty to look at. I enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed seeing it on a massive IMAX screen. Fortunately, that's kind of where everything ends in terms of what I thought was good about this film. So as I said at the start, my aim with these kind of movie reviews is to sort of rank the films that I watch over the course of the year so that come the end of the year, I can kind of look back on and see where I've put things. So in terms of rating Mandalorian and Grogu, I can't give it 5 stars. There was a lot that just didn't connect for me about this film. 4 stars, I think, is high for it as well. I don't think it should fit in there. 3 stars, I think, is where my gut is telling me where to put it. Ultimately, I think this film is very much for kids, and I think if this is the first Star Wars film that you are going to see in the cinema, And especially if, you know, people my age in their 30s and older or whatever, and taking their kids to see a Star Wars film for the first time, I think your kids will really enjoy it. There's enough in there for them to like it. I think Grogu is going to sell a ton of merch. I think the Mandalorian as a character is going to do really well at things like Galaxy's Edge in the Disney parks, as in terms of a walk around meet and greet character. The action scenes were very good. I'll give it that. The action scenes were really, really good, especially that opening one where he's doing the opening bounty and he's bringing down the AT-ATs. That was really cool. So the action was good. There was a couple of little nods in there that I liked, but I think it's going to have to go in the 3 stars. I think that's where it belongs. As I said, in terms of kind of my final thoughts on this then, structurally, this was all over the shop and didn't work. There was no character development. There was no character evolution. Nobody was different exiting this film than they were going into it. But it was great to look at. You know, it did look really, really nice. I just mentioned there about the AT-ATs, and there was a couple of little nods to other Star Wars things that I enjoyed. So the bit where they're in the Colosseum and kind of all the monsters come in, those being the little holograms that were on the chessboard on the Millennium Falcon in the early Star Wars. That was really cool. I did get a kick out of that. But at the same time, I felt that then provides opportunities for you to branch that out and do more with it. So, for example, when Grogu is going to that little hut and there's the character on the rocking chair kind of down by what I assume to be sort of the Star Wars equivalent of the bayou, for a moment, I thought it was Sebulba from Phantom Menace, and I got really excited. And then when it wasn't Sebulba, I was like, oh, you know, felt like a missed opportunity. Or if you're not going to do that, you know, if that's just me doing wishful thinking and armchair directing, then fine. But I felt that there was another 1 or 2 moments that you could have got in there that has an implication, you know, something that could maybe lead us into the Ahsoka series that's coming up, so that there's a reason to continue watching there. You know, a little bit more fan service, I think, would have done this film a world of favours. Feels a bit of a harsh saying, but it would have definitely elevated it somehow. So yeah, there we go. Star Wars, Mandalorian and Grogu, 3 stars. The first film that I've reviewed and put in the Film Club 2026 box. What did you think? If you liked it, or if you disagree with anything that I said there, let me know in the comments down below. Feel free to like and subscribe. My plan is to start trying to do more of these. I've got tons of films that I've got to catch up on and start making videos of. But this felt like a nice in and a nice way to get started. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.